Hello friends, Namaskar. Welcome to Professor Sahu Academy. In this video, we'll understand about the mathematical equation and its components. We'll also understand how to use the mathematical equation or models to explain the economic theories and how to examine the economic theory empirically by taking the data and with the help of the mathematical model. So let's start. So in the mathematical equation, if we will just write for one example, that is C is equal to alpha plus beta y. So this is a mathematical equation and which actually shows the exact relationship between the dependent and independent variable. Exact relationship between the dependent and independent variable. Okay, so the mathematical equation basically explains the exact relationship between the dependent and independent variable. Here C is our dependent variable, Y is our independent variable, alpha is the intercept term, or constant term, beta is the slope coefficient. So we'll understand the each component step by step. So here if we want to examine how the y affects the C, that means C becomes the dependent variable and y becomes the independent variable, and here we assume that C depends upon y. So y is also called as the explanatory variable, okay, or regressand, okay, explanatory variable. Now what is the meaning of alpha here? Here alpha is the value of C when value of y is 0. Okay, if we'll take the value of y equal to 0, b into y it will be equal to 0. So value of C will be equal to alpha. So it is called as the constant value or the intercept value. What is the value of beta? Beta is the slope coefficient. This means if y changes by 1 unit, if y changes by 1 unit, how much C will change? This will be explained by the beta value. So I hope you could understand the dependent variable, that is C, independent variable, that is y, intercept value, that is alpha, slope coefficient value, that is beta. Now we'll take one example from economics and try to explain that from the mathematical form with the mathematical form or with the help of the mathematical equation. So here we'll take the consumption theory by Keynes, or we can say Keynes consumption theory. Consumption theory. So according to the consumption theory by Keynes, consumption is a function of income. So here it is called as the functional relationship between the dependent and independent variable, and here C or consumption is the dependent variable, Y or the disposable income as the independent variable. C is the dependent variable, Y is the independent variable, and according to Keynes theory of consumption, first is that there is a direct relationship between income and consumption. Income and consumption. Okay. That means if income will increase, consumption will also increase, and if income will decrease, consumption will decrease. So this is explained by the direct relationship between income and consumption by the Keynesian consumption theory. Second thing, Keynesian consumption theory says that as income increases, as Y increases, this implies that consumption will also increase, but less than proportionately, Okay. These two things are explained in the Keynesian consumption function. Now, using this theory, how to understand the mathematical equation or how to represent this economic theory in terms of a mathematical equation. Now, we can write the mathematical equation as C is equal to alpha plus beta Y. Here, as I already explained, C is the consumption or the dependent variable, alpha is the intercept term, beta is the slope coefficient, and Y is the disposable income. Here alpha means the intercept or the autonomous consumption here. Here it is also called as autonomous consumption. Autonomous consumption means in economics we already know that every individual needs to survive, and for his or her survival he or she needs a fixed amount of the consumption every day. So even if his income is zero, every person needs to consume a minimum amount of goods and services, so which is called as autonomous consumption. So here even if the disposable income it will be equal to 0, C will be equal to alpha. That means when the person has no income, he will be consuming alpha amount of the goods and services, that is the autonomous consumption. What about the beta? Beta is the slope coefficient, or in this consumption theory, beta it will be calculated as delta C upon delta Y, or change in the consumption due to change in the disposable income. It is also called as the marginal propensity to consume. And according to psychological law of consumption, the marginal propensity to consume must lie between 0 to 1, and this value, that is whether means beta it will be lying between 0 to 1 or not, that is being given from the second point here. In the second point we said, as income increases, consumption will also increase. That means there will be a positive change in the consumption. So beta value, it has to be greater than 0, or it should be a positive value. Second thing, it says that when the income increases, consumption also increases, but less than proportionately. That means how much income will increase, consumption has to increase less than the increase in the income. That means if income it will increase by 100, consumption will increase less than 100. It can be 80, 90, 95, 99, but it should not be equal to 100. So beta value, it has to be less than 1, or MPs it should be less than 1. So from this theory we can explain this mathematical equation and its components. Now we can explain this through a numerical example again, and we can estimate the alpha value and beta value from the numerical data. So here we can again write this equation as C is equal to alpha plus beta y. Now we'll take the income and consumption data from an individual. Suppose here income in rupees and consumption in rupees. Suppose when this data is for a individual, suppose A, individual A. Individual A's income, suppose initially it was 0, and then it increased to 1000, then it increased to 2000, again to 3000. Accordingly, suppose his consumption, when his income was 0, he was consuming a minimum amount of 100, which is for his survival. That means the minimum goods and services the person has to consume in his everyday life in order to survive, even if he has income or he don't have any income. So here when income was 0, the consumption of person A was 100. Now if income increases from 0 to 1000, according to the theory of consumption, the consumption has to increase. Suppose the consumption increases from 100 to 200. Okay. Now suppose again the income increases to 2000 and the consumption increases to 300, and again when income increases to 3000, the consumption increases to 400. Now in this mathematical equation, how to estimate the, or how to know the value of alpha and beta given the observed data point. Here we are having this observed data for a individual A, and about his income and about his consumption data we have. Given this data, we can say that alpha value, which is the value of the consumption when income equal to 0. So alpha is the autonomous consumption. We can say when income was 0, the consumption was 100. So it is the value of alpha or autonomous consumption. Beta value, which is the marginal propensity to consume, that is change in the consumption due to change in the income. So here when income changes from 0 to 1000, that means income increased by 1000. So this is the delta y. Okay, this is the delta y. Then how much consumption increased? Consumption increased from 100 to 200. That means consumption increased by 100, which is called delta C. Okay, so as income increased by 1000, consumption increased by 100. Again, if income is increasing from 1000 to 2000, so here again income increased by 1000, or you can say it is the delta y, and consumption increased from 200 to 300, that is it again increased by 100, that is delta C. Again, when income increases from 2000 to 3000, income increased by again 1000. Consumption increased from 300 to 400, that is delta C is equal to 100. That means every time when income is increasing by 1000, consumption increased by 100. So value of beta will be equal to delta C, that is change in the consumption every time it is changing by 100, and divided by delta y, that is change in the income every time income is increasing by 1000. So value of beta will be equal to, cancelling 20 from both numerator and denominator, we can find value of beta is equal to 0.1. And how to interpret this value of beta? Value of beta, it can be interpreted as when income increases, when income increases, when income increases, consumption increases by 10% of the increased income. Increased income. This means that when income increases, consumption increased by 10% of increased income. That means 10% of 1000, that means every time income is increasing by 1000, and 10% of that 1000 is increasing every time. So therefore when income increased from 0 to 1000, consumption increase 10% of it, that means it is increasing by 100. So earlier it was 100, another 100 increase, so the new consumption means becomes 200. The autonomous consumption 100, another 100 increase as income increased by 1000. So the new consumption becomes 200, and the additional consumption, that is 100, which is called MPC. Again, as income is increasing from 1000 to 2000, that means increase in income equal to 1000. So another 10% of consumption is increasing. So another 10% of 1000 equal to 100. So earlier he was consuming 200, now he will consume 300. So which is the change in the consumption due to change in the income, or MPC. So here every time income increases, consumption increasing by 10%. Now using this mathematical equation and estimated value of alpha and beta, here alpha, estimated value of alpha, that is equal to 100, estimated value of beta, that is equal to 0.1. 1 or 10%, we can estimate the value of consumption for any value of income. So here, in order to do so, we can just again write this equation, that is C is equal to 100 plus 0.1 income or Y. Here 100, which is the value of alpha, 0.1 is the value of beta. Now we can say if income will be rupees 4,000, how much will be the consumption? How much will be the consumption? So if income will be 4,000, how much will be the consumption? Simply we can replace the value of income in this estimated equation, and we can easily find out the estimated value of the consumption. Now C will be equal to 100 plus 0.1 into income, that is 4,000. So now we can write it 100 plus 0.1 into 4,000, that means 10% of 4,000, that will be equal to 400. So we can say estimated value of the consumption will be equal to 500. Okay. So from this equation we can find out that if income will be equal to 4,000, consumption will be equal to 500. In that previous example also, you see, by observing this series, as income increases from 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 2,000, 2,000 to 3,000, the consumption is increasing from 100 to 200, 200 to 300, 300 to 400. So if income it will be equal to 4,000, so obviously the consumption will increase from 400 to 500. So this is the new income and this is the new estimated value of the consumption, which we observed from this series also, which we can estimate from this equation also. Now we can represent this mathematical model in terms of a graph, or we can have a graphical representation of the consumption theory. So here we can write the x-axis and y-axis, x-axis and y-axis. In the x-axis we will take the income. Here we will take income in rupees, and in the y-axis we will take consumption in rupees. And from the equation, that is C is equal to 100 plus 0.1y, where 100 is alpha, 0.1 is beta, that is the autonomous consumption alpha, MPC or marginal propensity to consume is beta. Now this alpha shows that when income equal to 0, our consumption equal to 100. That is called autonomous consumption. Even if the person is having no income, he has to consume something for survival. When income equal to 0, consumption equal to 100. And when income increases from 0 to 1,000, 1,000 to 2,000, 2,000 to 3,000, consumption increases from 100 to 200, 200 to 300, 300 to 400. Now we can just join these points. That means when income was 0, consumption was 100. When income is equal to 1000, consumption become 200. So we can join this as this. Suppose this is 0.1. Now when income increases to 2000, consumption becomes 300. Suppose this is 0.2. And when income increases to 3000, consumption increases to 400. Suppose this is the 0.3. And this is the 0.0, suppose. So joining 0.0, 1, 2, 3, we can find out the consumption line or consumption function or the consumption equation here. So here this is 100, that is the alpha value, which is the autonomous consumption, because when income was 0, value of consumption was 100, so this is the alpha. What is the beta value? Beta value is the slope coefficient, and in this graph we can find out the slope coefficient, that is delta C by delta Y. Here delta C is, it can be found out as change in the consumption. So initially he was consuming 100, suppose this was 100. So now when his income increases from 0 to 1000, his consumption increased by another 100. So this is called delta C. And this delta C happened because delta Y happened. So when income increases from 0 to 1000, this will be called as delta Y. When income increases from 0 to 1000, consumption increases from 100 to 200. So this will be delta C and this will be delta Y. So beta will be equal to delta C by delta Y. I hope you understood this mathematical equation of the consumption function when we are representing this in terms of the graph. Okay. So I hope you understood the things like what is a mathematical equation, what are the components of the mathematical equation, how to represent a economic theory into a mathematical equation, how to estimate the mathematical equation to find out the estimated value of dependent variable given the independent variable, and how to represent the theoretical model in terms of mathematical equation to a graphical representation. Thank you so much for today. I hope the video was interesting. Please subscribe to our channel for more videos. Thank you.